BookTube, it's Connie, and I'm here for a weekly wrap-up and with 3 quick book reviews and a week in reads. So let's get started. The first book that I finished this week was My Absolute Darling, and it was written by Gabriel Tallent. Unfortunately, the book, I sent it back. I had gotten the Kindle book as well as the audiobook from the library, and I had returned them. So I don't have a picture of it for you, but this book I had heard some really good reviews on BookTube and on Goodreads. It has some pretty good reviews. I did think it was a good book. It was compelling, and I did want to keep reading. It's a book about sexual and child abuse. It's about our protagonist, Turtle, Julia, and what she goes through, and basically what her life with her father, her abusive father, how it turned her personality. She doesn't like women. She hates all, girls or women. She doesn't like them. She constantly refers to herself as a bitch or a slut, a whore in her head. It's made her very, very tough and a very unlikable person. She doesn't have very many friends. This book, unlike A History of Wolves, and that really wasn't too much about abuse, but The Clay Girl, which I thought was written really well. It doesn't, whereas The Clay Girl, it didn't overshadow the abuse, but it wasn't as in your face as this. This book was definitely written by a man. There were some very, very difficult and uncomfortable scenes in this book with respect to the sexual abuse. It made me very uncomfortable, and I think that that's what this book wanted. That's what the author wanted. He intended you to be very uncomfortable. Because I think that as a society, we don't like to discuss these things. I know people who say, oh, I don't want to read that. That's about abuse of a child. I don't want to read about that. But I think it's important that we do read about it so that I think that we all know in the back of our minds that this goes on, but maybe we don't know to the extent that these abuses might be going on. So I don't know. I felt it was kind of an important read. It was important to get through the book. And again, I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't the best writing. There were some areas where he went into discussing guns and, things like that. That's one thing that I like about listening to audiobooks is so in the past, if I was just reading, I would probably get stuck on those parts that I would find boring. But the audiobook, if I'm listening to it in my car, it's just, you get through it, you get past it, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't put me into a reading slump. So I do recommend the audiobook for that reason. But yeah, I did like that book. That was My Absolute Darling by Gabriel Tallent. Uncomfortable book to read, but still worthwhile. Then the second book that I finished this week was part of my Man Booker long list. I don't know if I'm going to get through the whole long list, but it was Lincoln in the Bardo. When this book first came out, it's by George Saunders. When this book first came out and everyone was making a big deal about it, I was kind of like, that's not something I want to read. And then when it was on the long list, I still was like, that's probably not a book from the long list. I'm not reading every book from the long list. But it was one that I thought, yeah, I'm not going to pick that one up. And then I saw several really good reviews on it by people I trust on BookTube. And so I thought, okay, now I want to pick it up. And I'm glad that I did. It was a very good book. It was written it's a different book. I highly recommend the audiobook because as with every book that I've done this year, I've listened to the audio as well as followed along in the regular book. It is a little bit harder to follow along in the audiobook because in this book, it goes through, it's written very oddly. It's written, you get excerpts of quotes from past biographies of Lincoln during the time that his son Willie died. So you're getting quotes of that. So, here, and you'll see that you get the quote here, and then it tells you what book it's from, who said it, and what book it's from. And it'll go through, like a whole chapter will just be several different quotes from several different people about what happened during this time. And then you go to the other part of the story, which is the dead who are living in the cemetery that Willie Lincoln was interred. So it was kind of hard to follow along when they're talking about the dead, because in the book it'll give you who it is that said that, and sometimes in the audio they read who it is that's speaking, and sometimes they don't. So the two or three main characters who were dead, I figured out whose voices they were, because the audiobook is a full cast of people, including, but not limited to, the author himself. Bradley Whitford, who was on, what was that show about the White House with Martin Sheen was the president. Anyways, he was the guy on that. Lena Dunham does a voiceover here. Don Cheadle does a voiceover here of one of the dead. So it is an excellent audiobook. But again, I did find at times that it was kind of hard to figure out who it was speaking when I was in the car and just listening to the audiobook and not able to follow along in the regular book. This book I gave a 4 out of 5 stars as well. Again, it was a good story. It was interesting. It was also almost like a fictional, not a fictional account of a non-fictional event. There was more actual nonfiction in it with all the quotes from the biographies that were done. And then the last book that I just finished today is a book called New People, and it's by Danzy, Senna. And this book wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be about. It takes place in the early 90s, and it's supposed to follow this couple who was like the New People, which are like, back in the day they called mixed race people mulattoes. So it's both of them are part white, part black, and they're coming together, and I thought that that's kind of what it was going to be like about their life in the East Village, because I never read the whole little synopsis because I think they give too much away. This main character, Maria, was really disturbing, to be perfectly honest with you, and the book ended kind of creepy. She was creepy and disturbing, and it is about their life. She's getting ready to marry this Khalil, and she's kind of having maybe some doubts about that marriage, and she kind of fixates on this other guy, and it flashes back and forth between her college life, her present day, and it's just kind of disturbing. And I haven't starred this one yet. I think it's either a 2 or a 3 star. I mean, it was an okay book. She was kind of an unlikable character, and anyways, yeah. So those were the 3 books that I finished this week, and now I'm on to 2 more books from my Man Booker long list. One of them did make the short list. However, if these books don't catch my attention, I'm not going to finish them. Probably I may DNF, which I'm not a DNFer. There's just something in me that I can't stand to DNF books. Even though I completely understand the argument that there are just so many books out there to read, why waste your time reading something that you're not liking? The first one that I'm going to start today is Zadie Smith's Swing Time. I'm hoping, if this isn't just horrible, I'll go ahead and finish it this weekend. And then I'm going to be starting, which did make the short list, by Paul Auster, 4321. This is a bit of a chunker. They both are. Paul Auster's book is over 800 pages, 850 pages, and Swing Time I think is close to 500, 453. So we'll see. I'll let you know what I think about those. All right, have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.